the end of November and that it's almost Thanksgiving. So you can see my Thanksgiving bouquet. I thought would be nice to display tonight. And I've been reflecting on how much giving thanks is just so built into our tradition. From the words that we traditionally are to say when we wake up in the morning, I'm thankful before the source of all life, to our series of morning blessings, giving thanks for the truly miraculous in the mundane. So I was thinking about how can we reframe something that's so baked into our tradition at a time when secular or the rest of the United States is celebrating Thanksgiving, and for some folks, they may not have a regular gratitude practice or have it built in to their tradition. So I invite you to reflect tonight on what's a deeper way that you can show and express gratitude that maybe looks a little different from what you might typically do. And I invite you to think about what you're grateful for during our Shabbat service. So take another deep breath, and then we're going to just sing our way into Shabbat with Nigun of Shalom Aleichem. Then we'll light the candles, and then we'll sing the words. And I have a special blessing that we're going to say tonight too after we light our candles. All right, so just waiting for our accompanist. Glad that Jethro could be with me tonight, could accompany our service, Rabbi Jethro Berkman. Yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, lai, lai. Yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, yai, lai, lai. Yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, lai. Candlelighting blessing is on page 2 if you're following along in the prayer book. Let's bring in 3 blessings, 3 things we're grateful for. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik shel Shabbat. So in this week's Torah portion, Toldot, we have the dying Isaac giving blessings to his twin sons, Esau and Jacob. And as you may know, that's a far more complicated story than the way I just described it. And we'll get in a little bit more into that both tonight and tomorrow. But because we have special blessings in tonight's Torah portion, and because it is traditional for parents to bless children after candle lighting, I wanted to share with you a tradition that I just today came across that I had never seen before, but I thought it was really something special I wanted to share because I know that those of us who are living alone during this pandemic or who are otherwise separated from close family can feel especially alone, not only at holidays, but at moments of times where we might give or receive blessings to those around us. And for the Jewish people, that moment is traditionally on Friday night. So I came across a tradition of people blessing, a way for people to bless themselves. And I think this was created long before this pandemic, but I thought it might be helpful. So I just want to share with you, and I want to invite you to go ahead and do this, whether or not you're with other people. So we have lit the candles, and we can close our eyes again if you'd like to. And I want to invite you to envision an important or influential figure. It could be a biblical character, it could be a historical figure, it could be an ancestor, it could be somebody in a generation that preceded you who was really important to you and influential in your life. So call that person to mind. And then imagine a positive trait that you admire in them. And then this ritual asks us to reflect on what it calls faulty steps or missteps that we may have had, that we may have taken this past week, whether literally, metaphorically, or spiritually. They may be things like losing your temper with family or friends, or not following through with a commitment, or not giving yourself enough self-care for the week. Anything that you intended to do this past week, or behaviors which you hold yourself to, but this week you weren't able to fulfill them as you wanted. And just with your breath, let your breath help you just let go of those missteps. Really step into this holy space of Shabbat and greet this character trait in that person, that influential person who came before you, and see if you can let the blessing of that person and that trait just envelop you in a warm embrace and help whatever you're letting go of this Shabbat, help you let go of it. And instead focus on that person and that trait that you would like to embody and that you would like to bring into your Shabbat and into the week that will come. So really take that in, and I'm going to offer the priestly blessing because that's also part of the blessing for parents to children. And I want you to give it to yourself. So I'm going to give it to you so you can give it to yourself and really take it in. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha. Shalom. May you feel enveloped by peace. May you feel peace within and surrounding you. And we say, Ken Yehi Ratzon. So may it be God's will. So those influential figures you thought of, perhaps we could think of them as angels. We're going into singing Shalom Aleichem, which is about angels, welcoming angels. Rabbi Rami Shapiro wrote that angels are another name for feelings. When we act with love and kindness, we create angels of love and kindness. And when we act with those, when we take those missteps, if we act with hatred or with violence, we create angels of hatred and violence. It's our job to fill our world with angels of love, messengers of kindness that link people together as one family. We're on page 24 if you'd like to follow along in the words. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Shalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We turn now to page 13 for Psalm 96, which invites us to sing a new song to God. And it's always a little bit of a conundrum. How do we sing a new song to God when we're reading the exact same words that we've read our whole lives, that our ancestors have sang for thousands of years? But in this week's Torah portion, Toldot, Isaac digs the wells of his father Abraham. And it's a reminder to us that even though we're often going back to the same places, the same words, one of the ways that we make it new again is by clearing out what is between us and the deepest source, the deepest well of Torah. So as we turn to Psalm 96, I invite you to clear out whatever pathways you need to clear out so that we can feel like we're singing a new song to God, the Shabbat.
Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai. I'm not sure if many of you know this, but today, November 20th, is the Transgender Day of Remembrance for all those who have died as a result of violence directed against them because they are transgender. And I found this beautiful introduction that is connected to that, an introduction to Lecha Dodi. In Lecha Dodi, friends address one another, encouraging all to come greet Shabbat. Often the congregation stands and faces the doors, bowing as Shabbat enters. One tradition notes that the congregation is thus turning away from the leaders and whoever else is at the front, often the more prominent members of the community, and bowing towards the back, where some of those who are at the margins of the community may be found. Let us pause to consider the vulnerability of all those at the margins and remember that we are called to recognize the image of God in every human individual. So tonight, let us turn to one another and invite our friends, new and old, to come and greet Shabbat. And then let us turn our circle inside out and call to all those around us. So we're going to sing Lecha Dodi, verses 1, 2, 5, and 9 to Leonard Cohen's melody, Hallelujah. And I hope some of you were able to join us last Friday night for our collaborative Shabbat when we used this melody, and we got to hear so many other beautiful melodies for the davening throughout the service. And if you missed it, or if you were there and you enjoyed it and would love to do it again, rest assured we will be doing that again. It was such a wonderful, wonderful evening. So I love that image. Let's turn our circle inside out and welcome those who perhaps are on the outside of the circles that we typically make, and remember those who are most vulnerable in our midst as we sing Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad. L'shem u'letiferet v'lithilah, Lecha Dodi likrat kala. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor haberacha, merosh mikedem lesucha. סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה, Lecha Dodi לקראת קלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קלה, פני שבת nekabela. Verse 5. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי. כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה, Lecha Dodi likrat kala. Lecha Dodi likrat kala
Thank you. We turn to page 342, and I want to invite a couple people to share if you had a moment of wonder this week, a Magadlu moment that you want to share with our community and with all the people watching on Facebook Live and Brookline Public Access TV. I invite you to unmute yourself and share that with us tonight. Larry, please.
The heroic work of our secretaries of state throughout this country.
Thank you. I'll share that you may notice I have a different Zoom backdrop tonight. It's because I made it down to Connecticut for my father's 75th birthday, major milestone. And I asked him, you know, when he was my age, what did he think 75 would be like? And he said, couldn't even imagine it. Didn't even think about it, but it's not that bad. So that's the good news. I hope that I make it to 75 and that it's not that bad. We turn now to page 342 to sing together a line from Psalm 92, a psalm for Shabbat.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Magadlu, Masechaya, Me'od anku machshevo Zecha, Magadlu, Masechaya.
Turn together to the Baruch Hu, the call to worship. And if you'd like to respond out loud and unmute yourself for Baruch Hu, I'd like to invite you to do that tonight. And we gather up all those connections to ancestors, all those warm feelings of singing together, and we bring them together in this moment of call and response as we turn to the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach
Le'olam
Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Umavir yom umevi laila umavdil ben yom uven laila Adonai tzvaot shemo El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai ha'mariv aravim.
We continue together with Ahavat Olam on page 32.
Ahavat olam beit Yisrael Amcha ahavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu B'shochveinu u'b'kumeinu Nasiach b'chukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם הגה יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיל ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. We join together V'ahavta on page 36. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. We stand at the shores. We stand with the sea behind us. Some of us may be feeling relief as we have moved past the tension of those initial days surrounding the election, and though things have not been smooth or easy, that's one image that comes to mind when I think, what is the sea behind me that I am grateful for having crossed over? And I don't know about you, but I was filled with a lot of anxiety, feeling like so much was at stake, so much that I believe in was at stake, and I feel in a certain way some hope on the horizon, and that we as a nation perhaps have reached a critical crossing point. So I imagine, or invite you to imagine, what's behind you. What is the sea, that raging sea that you never expected to part, but it did somehow, and you feel a sense of relief and awe and wonder and gratitude. Let's just kind of take that in, and we're going to sing Mi Chamocha on page 40, if you'd like to follow along in the words. Leave air. So we're going to sing the Yai Lai Lai. We're just finding the music. Sorry about that. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osei felet, nora tehilot osei felet. Yai rai da rai rai, ya da da rai, ya da da rai, yai rai da rai, yai da da rai rai rai, yai rai da rai rai, ya da rai, ya da da rai, ya rai da rai, ya da 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 rai rai rai. Malchotecha ra'u vanecha, bokeh hayam לפני משה ומרים, זיילי אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. So we have these amazing moments in our liturgy that really span the whole landscape of human emotion. So for Mi Chamocha, we have that sense of, we've crossed over. And then we have that sense of, is everything going to be all right? Will we have crossed over? In this next blessing, Hashkivenu, our lying down at night blessing, we say, please God, may we lie down in peace. May we be able to wake up to a new day. I love that about our tradition. It is so all-encompassing, so holistic, so realistic about the human experience, that we all experience all of these emotions, often and sometimes all at the same time, and it's all reflected in our liturgy. So let's remind ourselves to help make everything all right for everybody else, and to believe that everything is going to be all right. With Hashkivenu, we're on page 42. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Go to sleep tonight. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Go to sleep tonight. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim.
One of my favorite kava note in our prayer book is at the bottom of page 47. It says, in an envelope marked personal, God addressed me a letter. In an envelope marked personal, I have given my answer. The Amidah is our chance to receive that letter, to send that letter. We turn together to page 46, and we rise in body or spirit for the Amidah.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה, אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים וחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Please take some moments of sacred silence for your own prayer and reflection. We'll join back together with Ohabei Shalom in a few moments. Ohabei Shalom bimromav, Uyaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. We turn our thoughts to those who are in need of healing, of body or spirit. It's a hard thing to think of those who are in need of healing when we are at this moment in this pandemic in this country, when we know that thousands upon thousands of people are suffering. Either they're going through this illness themselves, or they are witnessing a loved one go through it, or they are experiencing long-term symptoms. It's hard to grasp the number. As the number grows higher, we grow more incapable of grasping it. So if you can think of those within your own worlds, of course, who you know who are in need of healing for any reason. And also, if you know someone who has had COVID or who has it and is in need of prayers, just to really imagine that person, really call them to mind. I'm going to invite you to put names into the chat of anyone for whom you're praying for healing tonight. And I'd like to mention some names of our community members who could use some extra prayers for healings tonight. Tonight we pray for Linda Hoffman, Peter Feldman, Fishel Ben Yisrael, Jane Esterquest, Rivka Shoshana Bat Meir V'Yehudit, Kate Bingham, Joseph Demoa, Valerie Rose, Norbert Berman, Cassandra Warshawski, Constance Warshawski, Annalie Cohen, and Eileen Schwartz, Chava Esther, Batchaya Rachel, V'chaim Yonah. Give you a moment to continue putting names into the chat or saying them aloud from wherever you are in your space. And we'll sing together on page 253. Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. And let us say Amen. Share a few words about our Torah portion tonight. Mostly the words of one of my great teachers of Judaism, though he didn't teach me personally, he taught many, many of us, and that is Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Zichrono Livracha, who died, I think now it's 2 weeks ago. I could be wrong, it may be more, I've lost track of time, but he very recently died, quite young, well, relatively young, in his 70s, and his teachings live on, and he had prepared already a year of Torah commentary, as he'd been doing for many years, which is all accessible in his books and on his website. So I understand that he had already prepared a full additional year that we'll be able to continue to learn from him this coming year. So I wanted to share a couple of thoughts he had about this week's Torah portion before we move toward concluding our service. As I said earlier, there's a lot about blessings in this Torah portion, and it's quite complicated. The Torah tells us that Isaac loved his son Esau, and he had twins, right? Esau and Jacob, but Rebekah favored Jacob. Of course, Jacob is our patriarch. Jacob is the one who receives the blessing, the covenantal blessing that was passed down from Abraham to Isaac and then to Jacob, that they will have many, many descendants, and that they will have a land. And Esau does not get that blessing. He is not to be the inheritor of the covenant, but he does nonetheless receive a blessing from his father. Rabbi Sachs, Zichrono Livracha, asked, why did Isaac give that blessing to Jacob and not to his favored son? Isaac fully understood the nature of his two sons. He loved Esau, but this did not blind him to the fact that Jacob would be the heir to the covenant. Therefore, Isaac prepared two sets of blessings, one for each. So what did he bless Esau with? Now, Esau, if you know anything about this part of Torah and this story and this family, you know that Esau was the sort of wild guy. In today's terms, maybe he'd be called like a party animal. He was sort of a a wild man. I may or may not have one of these as one of my children. Totally kidding. But sometimes it feels that way. So he was of the twins, the man who was more of the party animal. And you could say that Jacob was maybe the more subdued one. But Isaac, Rabbi Sachs writes, really understood what was different about his two sons and their very, very different qualities. And if you're a parent, you know how different children of the same parents can be, or even if you're not a parent. He understood. He really knew them. And so the blessing that he gives to Esau is of gifts that he felt Esau specifically would appreciate. And they're really about wealth and power. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. And may nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. So he goes on like that. These blessings are about power and they're about wealth. They are not about covenant. The blessings that God had given Abraham and Isaac were really different. They were about children and a land. May God bless you and make you fruitful and increase your numbers until you become a community of peoples. May God give you and your descendants the blessing given to Abraham so that you may take possession of the land where you now reside as a foreigner, the land God gave to Abraham. That is the blessing that Isaac gives to Jacob. So Rabbi Sachs notes that, so this was the blessing that Isaac had intended for Jacob all along. There was no need for deceit and disguise. He asks, why did Isaac love Esau and encourage him and wish to bless him when he was so different? And obviously parents are going to love all of their children, but why does the text seem to go out of its way to describe also Isaac's love for Esau? And Rabbi Sachs just does this amazing teaching that I wanted to share in his memory, which is he thinks that the answer about Isaac and Esau's relationship can be found in three what he calls extraordinary silences that we witness in the text related to Isaac. You might remember that there's a strange scene after the binding of Isaac, which was clearly quite traumatic for Isaac, who was bound and nearly sacrificed. And there's no words spoken by Isaac after that. There's really a very conspicuous quiet. Many of our interpretive traditions try to figure out what happened to Isaac after the binding. He really just kind of drops out of the picture. And the text tells us that Abraham returned to his two servants who had accompanied them to the mountain, but there was no mention of Isaac. Okay, so that's one silence. The second silence in relation to Isaac is the death of Sarah. We read that Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and weep for her, but where was their son? Where the primary mourner should be Isaac, and Isaac should have been leading the mourning, writes Rabbi Sachs. But he's not mentioned in the entire chapter that relates to Sarah's death and its consequences. And thirdly is the narrative in which Abraham instructed his servant to find a wife for his son. We don't see any dialogue between Abraham and Isaac, what type of woman would you like, to marry? None of that. He doesn't consult his son, says Rabbi Sachs. Abraham knew that a wife was being sought for Isaac. Abraham's servant knew, but we have no idea as to whether Isaac knew. The text is silent, and only when the servant returns with Rebekah does Isaac enter the narrative at all. So Sachs asks this question: what do all these silences mean, and what do they have to do with the later relationship of Isaac and his son Esau? He writes that even an arrested sacrifice still has a victim. Isaac may not have died physically, but the text seems to make him disappear, literally, through three scenes in which his presence was central. He should have been there at all of these scenes. It seems that something in him did die, only to be revived when he married. The text tells us that Rebekah became his wife, and he loved her, and Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. That seems to be the messages of the silences. That Isaac also never forgot about Hagar and her son, of course, his half-brother Ishmael, who had been sent away. That somehow this divided family was reunited, seemingly at the instigation of Isaac. And if this is so, then Isaac's love for Esau is simply explained. It is as if Isaac had said, I know what Esau is. He is strong, wild, unpredictable, possibly violent. It is impossible that he should be the person entrusted with the covenant and its spiritual demands. But this is my child. I refuse to sacrifice him as my father almost sacrificed me. I refuse to send him away as my parents sent Hagar and Ishmael away. My love for my son is unconditional. I do not ignore who or what he is, but I will love him anyway, even if I do not love everything he does, because that is how God loves us, unconditionally, even if God does not love everything we do. I will bless him. I will hold him close. And I believe that one day that love may make him a better person than he might otherwise have been. Rabbi Sachs concludes, in this one act of loving Esau, Isaac redeemed the pain of two of the most difficult moments in his father Abraham's life, the sending away of Hagar and Ishmael and the binding of Isaac. I believe that love helps heal both the lover and the loved. The power of love to heal both the lover and the loved, the healing power of love and blessing. I found that really powerful and a lens through which I had not really looked at this Torah portion. We focus on Jacob, our patriarch, who becomes Israel, who is the father of us all and the inheritor of the covenant. But this special relationship between Isaac and Esau and the redemptive power that we might see in their relationship and in the blessing he gives to Esau is certainly something to think about. You'll learn more about this Torah portion tomorrow with Rabbi Schaefer if you'd like to join for our service tomorrow. And right now we're going to move toward the conclusion of our service. And of course, if you have any comments, questions, thoughts, want to share them in the chat, you're welcome to do that, and we'll leave the Zoom open a little bit at the conclusion of services in case you'd like to share anything. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Rabbi Schaefer.
Thank you, Yesher Koach. Everybody's welcome to join me on page 282 as we move towards Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol latet gedula liotzer breshit shehu notei shamayim v'yosed haaretz u'moshav yikaroho b'shamayim mima'al u'shchinatu zo b'gofei meromim u'Eloheinu einod v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'nemar V'haya Adonai L'melech al kol haaretz Bayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad U'shemo echad. Welcome to be seated. As we turn towards Mourner's Kaddish on page 294, I'd like to invite you to share any names in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute yourself in a moment and share the names of loved ones and friends you're saying Kaddish for, you're welcome to. As a community tonight, I know many of us are holding in our hearts Judy Mabel, who was laid to rest this Wednesday, and many of us were able to join together on Zoom for her service and for Shiva. And I know Rabbi Berkman and I were able to be with her in her final weeks. And it was a blessing to be with her. And she blessed many people in this community with her strength of conviction, her will, her gift of song, and her warmth. If anybody would like to share the names of their loved ones, please share them in the chat with us, or you're welcome to unmute yourself.
Alan Stark.
Thank you, Jim.
Louis Kaplan, Rabbi Lipoff's husband, Mike Lipoff, and very dear congregate friends, Evie and George Baser.
Thank you, Spence. Let me add the names of Neil Spritz, Zita's Aunt Miriam, Julie Lebach, Rose Balish, Claire Ballas, and Karen Miller. We turn to page 294 and we rise from Mourner's Kaddish if it's our custom. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ulamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha b'rechu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechamata, damiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing. I want to share just a couple short announcements before we conclude our services tonight in song. Tomorrow morning at 10:30, we're going to join together with Shir Chadash for a joint service. Come receive a virtual Aliyah, sing with us, learn with us. It should be a wonderful morning. And next Monday is the second part of our two-part class led by Henry Morris and Larry Gillick on Jewish work and its transformation by artificial intelligence. That will be on Zoom at 7 o'clock, and you're welcome to, everybody is welcome to join us. And on December 2nd, which is coming up very soon after Thanksgiving, we have a Ben Adler event, and we're going to hear about COVID and the response to COVID, sponsored by the Brotherhood and our adult ed community, and we hope everybody can be there. And Hanukkah, believe it or not, is right around the corner. On December 10th, Thursday, December 10th, Hanukkah starts, and we will have something each night. So check your newsletters, check the website. Lots more exciting details to come about Hanukkah.
Yeah, we have, not only do we have something each night for Hanukkah over Zoom, which is going to be really lovely, and maybe even something outside in the parking lot one night. Just stay tuned. You will be getting all of this information, but we also are going to have the opportunity for you to either come to the synagogue and pick up a little, what we're calling a Hanukkah survival kit. It's really a care package like what we did for the high holidays, but this is free to everyone, to all members. And then we'll also be delivering them to those who cannot come and pick them up. And when you come pick them up, you can also pick up at long last, a Shabbat prayer book if you would like to have a hard copy. Now that we're 8 months in to this, really sorry we haven't made this happen earlier, but if you would like a copy of our prayer book and are a member, we're going to be offering that. So please do read your emails, even though I know there's a lot of information and we all get a lot of emails, but we're going to be doing a lot of wonderful things to brighten up the darkness this Hanukkah. So we're looking forward to being connected. So we're going to make Kiddush and Motzi together. And Coco is really excited about the challah that's about to come out. And then we will conclude our service. And again, if you want to stay on the Zoom and say hi, please do that. It's great to see some faces who have joined us, but not usually over Zoom. There's a particular baby that I would love to meet, Heather. So if you want to join with us for Kiddush, we're on page 5. Sorry.
I'll kiss it.
It's the prayer book. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava uvratzon inchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techila lemikraei kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta, v'tanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'yahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen.
Well, not only Coco is excited about the challah, I don't know if you know, I also have children, not just the dog. I know I always talk about the dog, but I do have kids, I think 2 or 3. Here are 2 of them, and they're also really excited about the challah. I hope you have some challah or something delicious at home to have this Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Easy, guys.
Yeah, they come out for the food. So, don't alarm or. Yeah, we're gonna do a peppy Adon Olam version. We're on page 321 if you want to join in. All right, everybody. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yetzir nivra ve'kasa b'chefzo kol azay melech shemo nikra azay melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora vehu haya vehu hover vehu yiyeh betifara vehu yiyeh betifara vehu echad ve'en sheni lehamshilo lehachbira Berkman for accompanying me beautifully and singing, harmonizing, and thanks to my kids.
For what?
For what? One of them. Just for being you. And also, I wanted to say happy Thanksgiving. I hope you will stay very safe. And I hope you will feel connected. If you haven't read our newsletter yet today, I highlighted a beautiful project where you could take it upon yourself to record the story of somebody else that for an organization called StoryCorps, which I really love. So we can make this holiday about sharing our stories and connecting us through time and space. So I hope you find some meaning in this holiday, though it will be so different. And I'm sure that it is feeling sad for many of us. We can't gather in the way we would want. So I wish you a safe and happy